you can draw this in Procreate. In this video, we will be making something very romantic because of Valentine's Day and because I love you, of course. And I also love seeing all your artworks on Instagram. Keep sharing them. If you want to get a chance of having your work featured in the next video, then be sure to tag me in your image once you're done doing this tutorial. As always, we will be using free brushes only. We'll be using the brushes that are already in Procreate. And I'm sure that you can make this heart balloon too, because I will guide you through all the steps, show you the brushes that I use, the tools that I use. We'll be using symmetry tool, for instance, Gaussian blur, layer clipping mask, and more. So get your canvas ready. It is 2500 pixels by 2500 pixels today. And we are going to start by using the monoline brush, and you can find it under calligraphy. And I have made a color palette. We don't have that many colors today, so it's an easy color palette. We'll start with this bright red, and we'll use the symmetry tool to make our heart. We'll go to the wrench over here, and then we'll go to Canvas, turn on the drawing guide, and then go to Edit Drawing Guide. And here you can see Symmetry. Click that and then go to Done. Now, whatever we paint or draw on the left side will also turn up on the right side, and vice versa, of course. So that makes it a bit easier to draw a heart. We'll set our brush to 10% and let's start drawing our heart. We'll start about here and make a curve upward and then move to the center like that. And then make that little willy thingy at the bottom. There. Now we can turn off the drawing guide, the symmetry tool. Go to your layer, click it, and then turn off drawing assist. And to turn off this line, go to the wrench again and turn off the drawing guide. And now let's add just a little here to ensure that it's not entirely symmetrical. And now we can drag in the color like this to fill our shape. Since I don't want this balloon to be perfectly symmetrical, we are going to the liquify tool, and you can find it under the magic wand. Go to liquify and use the push option. And I have the size set to 97%. And I'm just gonna push some parts around a bit, just so that our balloon isn't entirely symmetrical. I'm going to 89%. We can play around with the shape of our balloon. Now we can click the magic wand again and we're back. Now we are going to add some shadow to our balloon, and we are going to do that on a separate layer. We'll click the plus to make a new layer, then click this new layer and set it to clipping mask. This way, whatever we paint on this new layer will only show up on this heart shape that is on the layer which we are clipped to. We are going to grab an airbrush, the soft brush to be exact, and we are going to use this dark color. Let's set the opacity of the brush to 50% and let's set the brush size to 20%. And we are going to go around the edges of the balloon, darkening up these edges all around the balloon. And we are going to make this left side slightly darker than the right side, because the light will be coming a bit from here. So we'll have a bit more shadow on this left side. A bit more here. Now we are going to make a layer beneath our heart layer. So first we will need to click the plus to make a new layer. Then we need to drag it underneath our heart. And here we are going to draw these little wigglies like that foil. If you look at real foil balloons, you will see that there are these little wigglies. And we're going to use the monoline brush under calligraphy to draw these. Let's grab this third color and let's get to drawing these wigglies. We're going to make these little oval shaped shapes just all around the balloon, and make some a little bit bigger and some smaller. Vary the size of these, well, I just call them wigglies. So be sure to vary the shape, well, not really the shape, but the size. Make some bigger and some smaller. And we're just using the monoline brush, which is still set to 10%. Let's continue your way around the entire balloon. And at some places you can leave little gaps. Oh, and if you really love tutorials like this one, and if you want to learn more, go more in depth, then you might like my Patreon page, because there I share a lot of digital art tutorials in Procreate, fully narrated, ranging from beginner level tutorials to more advanced tutorials. Now that we have created these wigglies, we are going to make a new layer on top of our heart layers. So we'll click the plus and let's use clipping mask again, just so we won't be able to paint outside of the shape. And we'll grab the soft airbrush under airbrushing, and we'll stay at this color, and our opacity, we'll set that to 50%, and let's set the size to 10%. And now we are going to paint in some folds. And these folds will start between the wigglies. That's where you'll see these folds. And they will move along that curve of the balloon. So these lines are a little bit rounded, well, depending on where they are. But here, this one is a little bit rounded, following the shape of the balloon. And you can make some very short and some a bit longer. On this side as well. You don't have to go in between all of these wigglies. Don't go overboard. Just some of these folds. But do make sure to follow that shape of the balloon. Make them a little bit curved. So some will be a bit shorter, and we'll make some a little bit longer. A bit like this. Next, we'll add a highlight on our balloon, and we'll make another new layer for that. So we'll click the plus again. Let's use clipping mask just to be sure. And let's grab the monoline brush. And we'll also grab this very light color. And we are going to draw in a reflection, or well, a highlight. This is like an evil eye. And we'll draw another evil eye right here. And an even eviler eye right there. So we have 3 evil eyes. You can make the brush a bit bigger to 20%. Maybe add a little bit here. Yeah, I like that. Now we are going to blur this highlight, and we'll do that by going to the magic wand and using Gaussian blur. Now, if you slide your pen to the right, you can blur this layer. Let's go for 9.9%. And now we are going to add even more highlights. So we'll make a new layer, use clipping mask, and grab the soft airbrush. Now we are going to place some extra highlights on this layer. Let's set our brush to 20% for now. I want to add some more highlights near this big highlight. And some highlights here up top. Now these highlights, you'll see them between those folds. I'm going to go smaller now. Let's go to 10%. So in between the folds, you will see little highlights. Because, well, where those folds are, the balloon is a bit, well, the surface of the balloon is a bit in shadow. And here, between those folds, you have a kind of a bulge, and that will be hit by light. And there are also little tiny kind of folds. You can see that the balloon is stretching, the surface is stretching. And that's why you're seeing those folds. And that's what will make this heart look like a foil balloon. These bright highlights and those little folds and the wigglies, of course. They are very important. Can't have a balloon without wigglies. Let's place some highlights on this side as well. And some of these stripes, so you can see that that surface is getting stretched and has tiny little folds, wrinkles. Don't know what you want to call them. This is what gives it that foil look. Some highlights near these folds. And a little bit of light here near that edge. Maybe some of these stretch marks coming out of this bigger highlight. And finally, let's add some highlights on this. Well, I'm not sure what to call it. Little willy thingy. We'll add some highlights here. And I'm going back to the soft brush, and I'll make another layer set to clipping mask. So we'll click the plus, click the layer, click clipping mask, and we have that soft brush. And I want to paint back in a little bit of light here. I'll make the brush a little bit smaller. I'll go to 15%. Just paint a little bit of light there. And now finally, our balloon needs a little ribbon, of course, because we need to hold it. So we'll make a new layer by clicking the plus, and we'll drag this layer all the way down to the bottom, and we'll go back to the monoline brush. We'll make it pretty big. Let's go for 65, and we'll make a little ribbon. And we can add a tiny shadow there. And we can do that by just using Alpha Lock. It's a bit like clipping mask, but then it's destructive. So that means that if you use this, darken an area on this layer and you go out of your file, go back, you won't be able to undo it. If you have clipping mask, these layers, you can still change them. Whatever you do, you can remove them, move them around, adjust them, but once you paint on a layer with Alpha Lock, you can't undo that. But still, you can only paint on the pixels that are already there. It will only show up on that shape. So it's the same as clipping mask and not. I hope that makes sense. So we'll use Alpha Lock on this layer, which means that we will only be able to paint on the pixels that are already there. And we'll use the soft brush for this, and we'll pick this dark color. Let's make it a bit smaller. We'll go for 8%, and let's make a tiny shadow. Now you have made a lovely heart balloon. Who are you going to send it to? Thanks for watching and following the tutorial. If you loved this tutorial, then you might like these two as well. I will see you next time.